MD, I believe you have a scary story that you'd like to share next. Would you like to start that story for us?
Oh boy, I'm so eager to share.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get that story started then.
This is a story of a time in my medical school when we had our first visit to the anatomy lab, where we worked on cadavers for the first time. I got to class a little bit early, but it was already almost full, so I took one of the available seats. As I sat down, I noticed that the woman next to me was someone I didn't remember seeing in class before, but this wasn't totally out of the ordinary for me. She seemed very nervous, so I asked if she was okay. She turned and looked at me with an uneasy smile and said, "Yeah, I think so. I'm just a little bit nervous about this lab because I've never actually seen a dead body before." I tried to ease the tension a little bit by making a joke. I said, "Well, I don't think you have much to worry about. I went and had a chat with the cadavers and I told them to behave themselves." And so she chuckled and she said, "Thanks, that's very nice of you." I introduced myself and she responded, "I'm Audrey Tempos." We chatted a bit more, and then she asked if we could be dissection partners for the lab, and I agreed. She said, "Oh, great. I feel much better about doing this now." And then she turned to me and she said, "Here, I made some cookies last night." She pulled out a little plastic container and handed me a homemade cookie wrapped in a little napkin. I wasn't particularly hungry, but I took it to be nice, and I took a bite, and it was pretty good. And she said, "Do you like it?" I told her I did, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad. They taste great, but I make a huge mess whenever I make them. I wind up getting flour all over everything, but they're really tasty and they help me relax when I'm nervous about something." And about that time, the instructor walks in, so I wrap up the cookie and the napkin and I throw it in my backpack for later. So we all made our way over to the anatomy lab. And when we got there, I noticed that Audrey was again looking very nervous, standing a little bit behind me as our instructor started in explaining the dissection for the day. This is one of those stereotypical rooms you may have seen in movies, where there are a bunch of autopsy tables in a room with cadavers on them in big white body bags. And just when we got to the point in the talk where he was about to open the body bag, all the lights in the lab went out. There were a few audible screams, including Audrey, who put her hand on my shoulder reflexively. After a few moments, she took it off and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I just got scared." I said, "It's okay. I was a little bit nervous there myself." And at about this time, everyone is reaching into their pockets for their phones to turn on their flashlights. But soon after that, all the lights came back on. There were sounds of some nervous laughter, but we managed to compose ourselves again, and the instructor finished his lecture. We were about to break into our groups when I noticed that Audrey was no longer behind me. I figured she'd gone to the restroom or get some water, or she'd just been spooked. But I figured that she would see me when she got back. So we broke into our partner groups, and I headed over to the cadaver that I was assigned for the dissection. But as I started to walk over, the instructor says, "Hey, I see you don't have a partner, and this guy's partner seems to have become ill," points to one of my classmates. He says, "So would you mind partnering up with him?" I told him I did have a partner. When he asked who it was, I said, "It's Audrey." He says, "Audrey who?" I said, "Audrey Tempos. She was just here." He looks at the class list and he says, "There is no Audrey Tempos in this class, so I don't know who you're talking about. Why don't you two just go and get started?" So this seemed very weird to me, but I figured we can proceed, and when Audrey gets back, she can join the group, and we'll just do it with three of us. No big deal. So we started the dissection, and my partner started recording some information from the toe tag about the patient, comorbidities, surgeries they'd had in the past, their age, what they died of, that sort of thing. But then he stops, and he says, "What was the name of the partner you had before me?" And I said, "Audrey Tempos." And he goes white as a sheet, and he says, "Holy crap, look at this." So I go over to where he's standing, and he points at the toe tag, and in big bold letters, it says, "Audrey Tempos." I tried to contain myself, but I decided I needed to leave. I gave some excuse to the instructor and left to go home. And as I walked home, I tried to make sense of what was happening. I told myself, it's just a coincidence. There's lots of people with the same name. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a weird thing that happened. So I get home and I drop my backpack on the ground. I reach in and I pull up my laptop to do some work. And as I pull it out, something fell on the ground. And I look down in horror at a napkin containing a half-eaten cookie.
My goodness, what a frightening tale, MD. What a. Well, I can't.
True story.
Yeah.
Empty your shoulder. You've got something on your shoulder.
Sorry, what?
Look,
Oh, I
maybe
see
we
that.
can edit it out later, but you got something on your shoulder.
Look at it.
Just right
There's
here.
Something there. What?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gonna have to get some dry cleaning done here.
Oh my goodness.
Is
Well,
that it looks like a handprint.
I don't know. I don't know what that was. Maybe my dog's making cookies or something.
well, that is quite an unfortunate coincidence, considering the exact moment that where we discovered this, we also just told the story about, cadavers and whatnot.
Yeah, that's weird.
What a very frightening tale, MG. I
Very
don't
spooky coincidence.
I don't envy your position. This is why I never went to medical school. I just became a painter.